Hi, friends. I wanted to share our book, Humphrey's Creepy Crawly Camping Adventure. I know we started reading this before school finished, but we just got through chapter one and chapter two. So I'm actually going to restart the whole book so that we can remember what happened. Make sure that you can share with your parents, talk about the characters, talk about the setting where the story takes place, talk about some things that are happening, maybe make a prediction as to what's going to happen later. You're welcome to share it with me if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading this. Our author is Betty G. Burney, and it's illustrated by Priscilla Burris. So let's find out what happens with Humphrey. Maybe you can take a moment to tell your parents who Humphrey is. If you don't remember who Humphrey is a classroom pet at a school, and we have 5 chapters. Okay, so I'm going to only read chapter 1 for now, and then I'll read chapter 2 later. Chapter 1 is called The Creepy Crawly Classroom. Let's see what's going to happen. And it says, "What is the opposite of slow?" Mrs. Brisbane asked our class one Friday afternoon. Mrs. Brisbane is the teacher in room 26. I am the classroom hamster. I was thinking about the answer when "Raise your hand, Heidi Hopper" cried out, "Fast!" "That's correct, Heidi," Mrs. Brisbane said, "but you forgot to raise your hand again." Heidi said she was sorry, and Mrs. Brisbane continued, "What is the opposite of happy?" she asked. A lot of hands went up. My paw went up too, but I guess Mrs. Brisbane didn't notice. She called on AJ. You can see there's Humphrey with his little paw up. "Sad," he shouted. "Correct," Mrs. Brisbane said. "But please lower your voice, AJ. Now what's the opposite of silly?" "Eek!" a voice cried out. It was Gail. She was almost always giggling. That's why I call her Stop Giggling Gail. But she wasn't giggling now. In fact, she looked scared, scared, scared. "What's the matter, Gail?" Mrs. Brisbane asked. Gail jumped out of her chair and pointed at her table. "There's a spider," she said. "A creepy crawly spider." "Ew," Mandy said. Og, the classroom frog, splashed around in his water. "Boing, boing," he said. That's the way green frogs like him talk. "Og likes spiders," Richie said. It was true. Og likes bugs. A lot. He even likes them for dinner. Ew. Mrs. Brisbane walked over to Gail's desk. "It's just a tiny little spider," she said. "It won't hurt you." I scrambled up to the tippy top of my cage to get a better look. The spider must have been tiny, because I couldn't see it at all. Mrs. Brisbane put a piece of paper under the spider and carried it across the room. Then she opened the window and gently let the spider crawl outside. "Girls are scaredy cats," I heard AJ whisper loudly. "They're afraid of everything," his friend Garth agreed. "I don't think girls are scaredy cats. I don't think girls are like cats at all. I also don't think I'd be afraid of a tiny spider." Mrs. Brisbane closed the window. "Boys and girls, most spiders won't hurt you. In fact, they can be helpful," she explained. I tried to picture a helpful spider. With 8 legs, a spider could be a lot of help when it came to washing dishes and doing other chores. Mrs. Brisbane said, "They help get rid of pests, and they're very shy." "But they're creepy," Gail whispered. Then Mrs. Brisbane asked, "Back to my question, what's the opposite of silly, Gail?" "Serious," Gail answered. You know what? For once, she looked very, very, very serious. At the end of the day, Mrs. Brisbane told the class that Heidi would be taking me home for the weekend. I'm lucky. As a classroom hamster, I get to go home with a different student each weekend. Og the frog stays in the classroom by himself. He doesn't need to be fed every day like I do. "Bye, Og," I squeaked to my friend as Heidi carefully picked up my cage. "See you on Monday." "Boing, boing," he replied. I think Og wished he could come too. So did I. That's the end of chapter 1. All right, meet me next time for chapter 2.